Oh, hi everybody, it's meteorologist Joe Chaffee on the Joe Chaffee Weather Show. It is Monday the 29th of April, next to last day of the fourth month, 2019, and 1/3 of the year is over. We are just moving right along here, and I hope everybody had a great weekend, albeit a chilly weekend in my neck of the woods, yesterday especially, and last night, with some frost this morning in a lot of spots just north and west and even north and east of New York City. And, of course, we had some snow in Chicago over the weekend. We talked a little bit about that yesterday. So now we're just kind of moving right along. I thought what I'd do tonight is kind of start off with the dilemma that is going on in the upper air. And it is a problem because we're in a situation right now that I think had we had it in the wintertime, snow lovers in the East would have been having at least a potential for a bit more fun out of this. But let me just set it up for you here. Just give me 1 second. Okay, get that window capture up. And we'll bring this up full screen in a moment. And we are going to start with the paint box tonight. So, what is going on? Well, first off, I'm bringing up the upper air from today. This is what it looks like, and I think your eye is probably going to go right to that big purple spot that is sitting over Greenland. This is a blocking high, and it's probably as far west as we've seen any kind of upper high in the North Atlantic, extending across Greenland. Actually comes in from Scandinavia across Greenland and pushes into Labrador. This is the time of year, by the way, where you normally will see blocking show up. It's actually far more frequent to see it in the spring than it is in the wintertime. We've seen, of course, so many instances during the winter months where models forecast blocking in the long range, and it just never seems to happen. Well, in the spring, where your jet stream pattern overall is weakening, that is a good recipe for a blocking scenario to develop. Now, while that is all going on, there are two other things that are happening. One is you have a trough here in the west, and there are a couple of short waves that we're dealing with. There's actually an upper low that is sitting in Southern California on the bottom of that trough, and then there's a short wave that's running up in the Pacific Northwest. You have a flat ridge in the east, and that's evident right here. You pretty much just have a westerly flow here across the mid-Atlantic states on southward. This is a signature of a negative Pacific North America index, or PNA, and we also have, because we have higher pressures up in the Gulf of Alaska, and you have lower pressures across much of central and eastern Canada, you have a negative EPO. And you've heard me say many times in the wintertime that negative EPO, I think, is the real driver. What that's doing is the ridge is trying to push up in the east. The block is pushing those two upper lows, the one that's sitting up in Canada and the other in northern Canada, the other one that is sitting near Newfoundland, and just kind of squaring it right across New England, back through the Great Lakes, and extends back up through the plains and into the Pacific Northwest. And then you've got this energy that's coming in from the west. So the result is that you've got warming that is occurring across the southern part of the U.S., particularly in the southeast and in the Gulf states, and maybe pushing up into the mid-Atlantic states in the next couple of days. And to the north, you've got all this cool air that's pressing down, and hence we talked about the fact that we've got this wavering frontal boundary that is going to be running right about here all week long, buckling back and forth. As lows come out, as waves develop on this frontal zone, you're going to see that kick up northward. You're going to see it buckle back southward, and this is going to impact temperatures from day to day. Now, one of the things that weather models were doing is trying to kind of break this pattern down by the time, to some extent, as we get into the weekend. But when we look at the latest, this is the latest GFS run, and I just jumped to a week from now. And one of the things you'll notice is that the signature is still the same, but it is a little bit weaker. You don't have quite as strong a blocking high up in Greenland, but it's still there. You still have lower pressures and colder air that are going to dominate around Canada. And while you don't have that cutoff high in the Gulf of Alaska, you still have some ridging going on here for the negative EPO, the East Pacific Oscillation, slightly negative PNA, maybe starting to turn a bit positive later in the forecast period. But my point is that with this signature still here going into next week, it appears that, and is typical in the spring, models have a tougher time. They start to break things down too quickly. Patterns tend to hold on for longer periods of time, and this is where you could wind up getting into a situation where it's just like gloom and doom for a week to 10 days for the most part. And if you're in a good spot, you might have sunshine and dry weather all the time in a situation like this. Notice, by the way, cutoff low, cutoff low, cutoff low, cutoff low, just cutoffs all over the place. Something you see a lot of in the springtime. So that really is going to be the driver going forward. And when we look at the teleconnections from today, which I'm going to bring up on the screen now, you'll notice the PNA, the Pacific North America Index, is very strongly negative here, and it takes almost to May 11th on this particular snapshot run from last night. The snapshot of the atmosphere, it takes almost till May 11th to bring that back to neutral. The more important EPO is off the wall negative right now, and it stays fairly strongly negative right up until about May 5th or 6th. I don't know if I said March before, I meant May. May 5th or 6th, and then starts to basically get back to the neutral line around May 12th and 13th. So while that EPO is negative, there's going to be a tendency for cooler air to spread across Canada. And of course, while all this is going on, we have a somewhat negative North Atlantic oscillation reflecting the blocking. One of the things I noticed, from today's teleconnections versus the last couple of days, is that the NAO signature is a little stronger and takes a little bit longer to get back to the neutral line. It does eventually go slightly positive after about May 6th or 7th, but who knows what we'll see tomorrow. But the general tendency is perhaps for this pattern to hold on for a longer period of time. I know that means that if you're waiting for nice weather, you're not going to be all that thrilled, but that's just the way it is. And meanwhile, what a day today across the South, as we are seeing the beginnings of a solid warm-up of 80s that will push up eventually. Tomorrow we'll start pushing up into the Carolinas and into Virginia. But these are current temperatures in Georgia. We've got low to mid 80s, upper 70s to low 80s in the Carolinas. The air is bone dry. And then you start to get into the 70s and 60s. And, of course, it begins to cool off as we go further to the north. Starting to set up a warm front here. 50s. Notice that you go from 50s to 70s over a very, very short distance. So your warm front's probably setting up somewhere in there. And as we move up the coast, we've got now, with the wind off the water, it's upper 40s across Long Island and coastal New England, upper 40s and low 50s. And through upstate New York and New England, it's mostly upper 40s to low 50s. But you go up into northern New York and on up through northern Vermont, New Hampshire, and into Maine, you're looking at temperatures that are in the low and mid 40s and even some upper 30s. And chilly back over through the Great Lakes, 40s, 50s now, so you can bet all that whatever snow that fell on Saturday is long gone. The sun angle didn't. If the temperatures didn't take care of it, the sun angle would. And we've got 60s and 70s now. We're dealing with the potential for some severe weather down in parts of the southern plains. So you're getting a bit of a battleground zone setting up here with 80s pushing up into Dallas-Fort Worth and 70s up through Oklahoma. the table is getting set for whatever severe weather are going to wind up. It looks like today's focus will probably be up into parts of Kansas. Meanwhile, here's the surface map tonight, and there's your warm front. I mean, you have the stationary frontal boundary that crosses right across North Carolina. So right in that zone where you saw the sharp temperature change over a short distance. So there's your warm front, snakes up the Appalachians and then turns back westward across northern Ohio and then extends southward. You have a cold front with a couple of weak waves running down through Missouri, Oklahoma, into northern Texas. And of course, to the north of there, you've got this high pressing down from Montana, and that's got temperatures up in the cool, chilly 40s and 50s. And here's another wave with low pressure, and there's going to be some winter weather to deal with in the Rockies tonight with that low. And they have various winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories that are up for this particular part of the U.S. And there are three waves that are in play here with this frontal boundary. The first one coming into the east tonight. The second one will be coming out of the southern plains for Tuesday night, for Wednesday into Wednesday night. And then the third one is coming in for the end of the week. And there is likely now perhaps to be a fourth wave that may come out for Saturday, the way things are looking on some of the recent weather model runs that we looked at. So here's your risk area for severe tonight. Northeastern Oklahoma into Kansas. And I'm sorry, that's, let me back up 1 second. That's actually for tomorrow. Let's get tonight's up here. Let me just find it. And there's your risk map. So let's bring the risk map up. All right, so here's your risk for tonight. In through northern Texas and nudging into Oklahoma. Marginal risk pushing up into Kansas. You've got also a small area of marginal risk in northern Ohio and a large area of marginal risk in the northern part of Arizona, southern Nevada, southern Utah, southwest Colorado, northwest New Mexico. In fact, much of northern New Mexico in that marginal risk. Now we can go to, let's bring back the Storm Prediction Center's risk area for tomorrow, which is actually fairly extensive here. Here's your day 2 outlook. And we're talking about a big area of slight risk from Texas through Oklahoma, much of southeastern Kansas and into Missouri. And of course, you've got that enhanced risk. That is going to be with that wave that's coming out for the middle part of the week. The first wave has already run to the east. Small area of marginal risk being indicated for northern Virginia, southernmost Pennsylvania here, and on up down into Maryland. So this is your day 2, which is 8 a.m. Tuesday to 8 a.m. Wednesday, and then on to the next day, and it really doesn't move all that much. That slight risk area only shifts slightly to the east as that frontal boundary is there. With the absence of a really deep low to kind of come out and sort of move everything along, you get just these waves that come out. So as each wave goes by, you're getting severe weather potential pretty much over the same zone. The marginal risk actually extends up through Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and into western Pennsylvania. So we'll see how this plays out with regards to what it produces. That enhanced risk tomorrow is something that I think we need to pay attention to. So onto the upper air, let's take a look at where it's all going here. So I'll just back it up because I did move it ahead. And you'll watch that blocking high that forms and just kind of locks things in as we came out of the weekend and into today. Now, of course, you do get a short wave that lifts up, so that ridge in the east builds here as we move into Tuesday and Wednesday. So you're going to push that warmer air up. You're going to attempt to push it up as far north as you can into whatever surface high is in control there in eastern Canada. So it's a tricky time of year. This is going to be a situation where, if you're in Virginia southward, you're going to have some great weather here with this upper high off the east coast. Much of the severe weather is going to get deflected to the northwest where the southwest flow is in the jet stream. So you're in good shape from there down into Georgia and into pretty much most of Florida with regards to the weather this week. And as we go into the weekend, that ridge flattens as you get that shortwave energy swinging around back through southern Canada. So here's that blocky signature again over Greenland, that negative EPO impact across Canada. And you're still seeing this sort of negative Pacific North America index trough in the western part of the United States and a flat ridge in the east. Over time, it tries to change here. The block weakens considerably, but you still have higher than normal pressures up around the poles. So this is going to make things a bit complex, probably right through the first half of the month. It's going to be very difficult to string back-to-back decent days. They'll probably will happen at some point, but it's just going to be really hard to do. It's also going to be very difficult to bring warmer air up into the northeast for more than a day, and even then you're going to have to do it with the cool high to the north and the onshore flow kind of fighting you every step of the way. So here's tonight's low coming across in through Ohio. That low goes out, and you get a break tomorrow. Showers overnight pull out, so we should see some improvement, but you'll see that high. There's a pretty strong high there in James Bay, in southern James Bay. That's that negative East Pacific oscillation at work. And of course, now you've got this energy that's coming out of the Rockies and plains. Your snow in the Rockies, snows up into Montana, parts of northern Nevada, and then spreading eastward across the Rockies here as we head into Wednesday. One wave comes out on Wednesday and runs up toward the western lakes, but if look at the isobars, look at the high that is still near James Bay. There's that H sitting. That's a 1040-ish high there Wednesday morning. And you've got southeast isobars running from off the Delmarva Peninsula in New Jersey, running northwestward into western New York, southeast or south-southeast isobars. The warm front here is getting pinched off. I'll draw it on the map for you. Hang on. All right, so here's your warm front. This is on Wednesday. Hang on, wrong brush. Now we got the right brush, but your low is right in here, and your warm front is doing something like this. Okay, because you've got a surface high here and a little high sitting off of Cape Cod, the way the map draws it. But the bottom line is, this is all kind of forcing the issue here with the winds coming in off the ocean from the southeast and running up. If we don't have a wrapped up cyclone here, the high is so strong that the low is going to try to buck up against it. It's going to have a real tough time getting through, and actually winds up getting squashed eastward as we go through Wednesday night into Thursday. More showers to deal with. Then the question for Thursday here, in my view, is after that goes out Thursday morning, is there enough time for weather conditions to improve? Because there's a brief moment in time where you might have a window of opportunity here to brighten things up and bring out the sun, and now you don't have a cold high to the north. So if that were to happen, this is the one day I think that you could wind up pushing that 80-degree line up, maybe up into parts of southern or central New Jersey and into southeastern Pennsylvania. It remains to be seen whether that's the case or not. And then as we head on into Thursday, Friday, here comes your next low that runs up into the Great Lakes. Another pinched off warm front there, running from the lower pressures up near Toronto. And if you follow the isobars, there's like a little finger there over southern New Jersey. There's a pinched off warm front there again. And then that goes by. And there's one more wave now for Saturday into Saturday night and Sunday before weather conditions improved. It looked yesterday like the Friday wave was going to be the last one because that block was going to be breaking down. But in fact, it's the next to last one because the models have kind of picked up on this notion that there will be perhaps a fourth run of low pressure coming up from the southwest. And here's where you might put together a couple of decent days back to back. There's as we head into early next week and beyond. But we're in the who knows part of the equation at this point. So I don't like the spring. It's just such a pain in the neck, to tell you the truth. It really is. I just don't like it. I just realized I didn't come back to the window. I've been just sort of excited here. So let's go back. Let me just run this back by you again. So, here's your low for Thursday. There's your pinched off isobar Wednesday night into Thursday. Then that goes out. You get this window of opportunity where it might get a bit warm. And then you got back to that pinched off low moving to the Great Lakes. Another warm front for Friday. Then that moves out. And then you got another wave that comes up for Saturday into Sunday, and then that moves out, and on it goes. Here's where I think, early next week, if models are correct, sort of relaxing that upper air pattern at the point that those teleconnections are starting to migrate back toward neutral. Maybe this will be a place where we could put together a day and a half of dry weather, or 2 days, or 48 hours of dry weather before you start to bring in the next round. It just is. This is why you got to be careful with long range, especially in the springtime, because of the volatility and the nature of when blocking shows up. Everything seemed to point to this idea that we were going to have a nice warm start to the month of May back a few weeks ago, and it just has completely fallen apart, really. It'll be correct from Virginia southward, but not for the areas up further to the north. And this is also one of the things you have to be cognizant of in the spring, is that you can have a ridge in the east all you want, okay? But if you've got other things in play, like we have right now, that causes a big high to develop in eastern Canada, and the low levels of the atmosphere could wind up being cool because the flow at the bottom of the atmosphere is from the northeast, or some component therein, and even the upper flow is southwest. Not good, okay? Not good. And in fact, that combination is telling you that you're getting into a pattern that is going to be frontal boundary close by, overrunning precip close by, and having to deal with it on a daily basis. Take a look at these temperatures as we go through this week. I use the GFS here. So here on Tuesday, it actually pushes 70s up on this late afternoon run up into central New Jersey. Actually, that's even Newark, and it's got low 70s. So, I suppose tomorrow, if it breaks out into enough sunshine, if it breaks out fast enough tomorrow morning, before the winds turn easterly, which they will do late tomorrow and tomorrow night, it's possible that we could see temperatures pushed up into the 70s, especially up through, to about central New Jersey, maybe even a little bit further north than that. But you'll notice that on Wednesday, big difference here. You've got low 70s in South Jersey. You've got low 50s in North Jersey. Upper 40s and low 50s across northern Pennsylvania. Upper 60s or 70s across southern Pennsylvania. There's a warm front in there someplace, and 80s in Virginia, North Carolina. In fact, tomorrow 80s make it up to about the Washington, D.C. area, or maybe even a little further north than that. There's your 80s for Thursday. Notice that as we go through the week, the frontal boundary kind of pushes a little bit further to the southeast. And here's where, here's where I discovered that I'm I'm in the wrong place. Again, I did this last night. Sorry, guys. Hang on a second. I got to get my dates squared up. All right. So now, here we go for Tuesday. All right. This is tomorrow morning. So tomorrow afternoon, why are the temperatures were so high? I thought it was really weird, and I have to check these dates sometimes. That's what happens. You're jumping from map to map and trying to do a whole bunch of different things, and you get confused. Okay, so 80s definitely into Virginia tomorrow afternoon. That we can square away to the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. 70s in South Jersey, almost 70 to North Jersey. That makes more sense. Okay, Wednesday, you're looking at 80s to somewhere between Richmond and D.C. The wind is coming in off the water, so you've got 50s New Jersey and Pennsylvania. Again, that makes more sense than what the map that I showed you, which would be for next week. Then Thursday, Now, here's that warm day I'm talking about for Thursday, where if we get that window, you get middle to upper 70s to about New York City, 80s into central New Jersey, and of course 80s down through Washington, D.C., Baltimore, and through the Carolinas. Friday, it starts to kind of narrow a bit, with the 80s confined more in central and eastern Virginia and coastal North Carolina, and then starts to push further southeast. But you get a bit more of a warm-up now as you run up into the weekend across the Northeast. Beautiful springtime weather, and Sunday we got 70s going up into New England. Let's only hope and pray that is the case. That would be after that last wave pulls out and there's not any real cold air to speak of. There's no real cold high building down behind it or any kind of onshore flow, so there is hope. Now, there's one other thing I wanted to show you, because Scott Briller brought this up pre-chat when you get the notification the chat board is open, so you can always jump on early. But down off, I'm going to bring up the surface map here. And even though it's not analyzed, there are some wind plots out north of Hispaniola and Cuba. We've got some easterly winds running at roughly 20 to 25 mile an hour wind gusts that are going on. This was the map analyzed as of 5 p.m. And when we take a look at the satellite loop tonight, they're actually, and I noticed a few people posted about this these clouds and showers and some scattered deep convection that's developed northeast of Cuba and the Dominican Republic. There is actually an inverted surface trough here that is producing this, and there's no surface low of any kind. It's way, way, way too early for something to happen, but it's just kind of interesting that we're seeing this. If you go to the Hurricane Center's nhc.noaa.gov, you can link to their tropical weather discussion, which is different from the tropical weather outlook. The discussion is done every day, 4 times a day, for both the Atlantic and the Pacific side, and they talk about this. It's basically it's a surface trough and what we call an inverted trough. It looks like it's just kind of sitting here producing some scattered deep convection, and it'll probably continue to do that in the coming days. The GFS, actually, I did notice. Let's just take a look. You can kind of pick up on it a little bit here, and some of it gets dragged toward the Florida during later Wednesday and into Thursday. Just some scattered thunderstorms. So I guess if that surface trough holds together, part of it might break off and just kind of move to the northwest and bring some showers late this week to the Sunshine State. So there you have it, folks. We've got it all covered with respect to where we're going this week. Going to be fun. Springtime blocking is such a joy, isn't it? And let me bring up WPC's rainfall forecast map for this week, because with that frontal boundary the way it is, it's going to be wet. And indeed, if you look at how they've got it figured, the ridge in the east, of course, keeps it mostly dry. Rainfall amounts of under a half an inch from Virginia southward into Florida. You have the big rains in Texas through Oklahoma, western Arkansas, Missouri, southeastern Kansas. There we're seeing a large area of multiple inches of rain over the next 7 days. Makes total sense. So there's your frontal boundary that runs from the southern plains northeast and then east-northeast to about New Jersey. The rainfall amounts across Pennsylvania into southern New England looking on the order of about an inch and a half, inch and a quarter, inch and a half spread out over the next 7 days, which is good. With all this going on, at least it's not we're not dealing with waves that are producing 1 to 2 inches as each one goes by. This is just going to be more nuisance than anything else. And of course, if you look at the lower right, you can see the rain that's being drawn in by that inverted trough that's sitting east of the Bahamas, with some heavy rains from the Bahamas eastward out into the Atlantic of multiple inches. But that's at least a reflection of the tropical system. Precip in the Rockies, but not a whole lot for the West Coast as that goes a bit quiet. And with regards to, by the way, I have no radar tonight like I usually do because the Weather Service has been having some problems with their radar shot. I'll pull it up to see if they fixed it. But here's what, you look at the satellite, one thing that really stands out is the fact that you do have a ton of clouds all over the place, except in the southeastern part of the United States where that flat ridge is right now and it's forecast to build. And of course you see the energy that's running through Texas and spreading out into the southern plains. Nope, radar is dead. Please be sure, by the way, if you are in an area that's at risk for severe weather tonight, you want to absolutely make sure that you check your local National Weather Service forecast office for any watches or warnings. I don't have any watch boxes working right now. Yep, not yet. So, but there might be tonight. So you might want to pay extra attention by going to weather.gov. All right, why is my... There we go. The camera is being evil. That's even still a problem. There. Okay. Didn't think to check and I should have done this beforehand. All right. One other thing, if I can find it. And yeah, is that what I want? Hang on. I'm thinking no. Yep, there it is. Okay, so here's your watches and warnings that are up for tonight right now. We've got actually a fairly large area of flood watches up across Oklahoma into Kansas. As part of this is that severe risk area tonight and through much of the state of Missouri except the extreme northwest and the extreme southeast, a small portion of northwestern Illinois and southeastern Iowa. And in the Rockies, you've got winter storm warnings up for parts of the Colorado Rockies on up and through Wyoming, and then you've got winter weather advisories for much of eastern Wyoming and on up into parts of Montana. And that is that. Let me just bring myself up full screen now. There we go. This is going to be one of those days today. I don't know why I look huge. My big head. I don't know if somebody fudged with the camera or not. I'd like to get a wider shot. There we go. Now at least you can see my nice looking tie. Okay. Hang on. Make myself a little bit smaller here. Beautiful. Get rid of that. Clean up the board. I spent my weekend, I hope everybody had a great weekend. I spent mine doing a lot of repair work on on my websites, a lot of sort of going into the wires of the website and cleaning up code and that kind of thing. And that took me both Saturday and a good chunk of yesterday. So I kind of buried my head in the computer all weekend. So, it was a little tough, but I did manage to do a live stream yesterday, which was, as tired as I was, it was tough. Mr. Rayo is here and probably be on tonight. We'll probably do a Facebook Live on my Facebook page, meteorologist Joe Chaffee. William Uber, my buddy, when do you think we'll get 48 hours of no rain in hometown? You need a 48-hour dry window. Okay. So I'm thinking you'll probably not going to get, well, boy, you might have to wait till the weekend after Saturday, the way it's looking. You might get, 36 hours if you go from tomorrow, tomorrow morning after this rain pulls out. We're probably okay into Wednesday night, provided that the onshore flow doesn't get overly aggressive and we start getting into some ocean light rain and drizzle coming in. But that might be the first window, and then we won't give you 48 hours. It'll probably give you more like 36 or maybe 40 at most, because then I think we'll probably have showers late Wednesday night, early Thursday morning. So there might be there's a possible window opportunity for you. Let's see. Just running through to see if there's any other questions. That big high over Quebec will be there till Memorial Day. Well, Michael Bologna, don't bet against it. I've seen stranger things happen in the springtime. One of the frustrating things is to see patterns just, showing you signals of breaking down, and you get some kind of blocking involved, and it just doesn't happen. So, would it shock me if we wind up going through much of this month dealing with this type of thing? No, it really wouldn't. Thankfully, at least from the standpoint of rain, with the way everything is set up, at the moment at least, the rains we're getting are going to be more of the nuisance variety. You get 1.5 inches of rain spread out over 7 days, it's not a huge deal. Okay, if you start getting into events that are producing 1.5 to 2 inches apiece, and you get 3 or 4 of them in a row over the span of 7 or 8 days, then it becomes then it becomes a big problem. It becomes a flooding problem. It becomes a mold problem. But that is spring. I'm always amazed. This happens every spring. Every spring. Spring in the Northeast is horrible. There's nothing new here, okay? I had somebody kind of imply that it never used to be this way, and it's like, stop, okay? It's spring in the Northeast with a 40 to 45 degree ocean right now. This is what happens every year. If you go back and look, it's rare that you wind up with a spring where you get a lot of sunny days back to back. Even in those springs, you still wind up dealing with backdoor fronts that come in. It's just the way it is. I don't understand where all this, the sensitivity has come from. There's nothing new here. There really isn't. All right, let's let it go here, folks. Thanks for being here. It's 5 after 8 Eastern time. So remember, if you're watching severe weather, make sure you go to weather.gov to get the latest information, because everything you're watching here is going to be dated. And we didn't have any real radars to show you because some of the Weather Service radar sites that we use apparently are having some kind of technical issue tonight. Joe and Joe, the Joe Rayo, Joe Chaffee Show, or as we call it, the Joe and Joe Weather Show, will be tonight on Facebook, so be sure to tune in for that. We'll probably go on at about 9:25, and if you're not on Facebook, not to worry. I do post it up to the YouTube channel. It'll also be posted up to my weather app, which you can download on Google Play or on the App Store. Just go to and search for Meteorologist Joe Chaffee, because that's what it says over there. Just search for that. And have at it. And for those of you who would like a really extensive weather experience, we've got 250 folks on my weather platform on Patreon. That's just $2 a month, and you get a lot of extra stuff, posts during the day, live streams. You can message me at any time. There's a link on the descriptor to this live stream if you're watching on a replay the video here. And just join up. As I said, it's just $2 a month, and it goes a long way to support what I'm doing here on not just on YouTube, but my websites and everything else. Thanks everybody for being here, and we'll see you tomorrow.